I know a few journalists, and they seem to be worried nearly all the time, especially the ones that are in newspaper work. In fact, I just had one of my close friends ask me how they can get into web design. My friend is also thinking about blogging. She says that it seems like more and more people are getting their information from blogs rather than traditional news organizations, and that worries her because her background is in journalism. What worries me too, but for a different reason entirely. When people get more information from blogs than they do news organizations, they're actually getting information from people who oftentimes have very limited training in information gathering. Thus, it is hard to know which blog you can trust and which one you can't. No problem, you might say. Just go with the blog that seems to have the more confident writer. After all, someone who is confident about his or her position would probably be more likely to know if what he or she is talking about is accurate, right? Well, not necessarily. In fact, it is very likely that the more confident writers of blogs, as well as consumers of media who constantly comment on news events on your local paper's website, television station web pages, and other news outlets, are not as informed as you might think. This overconfidence has a name. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Justin Kruger and David Dunning of Cornell University conducted a series of experiments using tests and people's self-evaluations on how they did on those tests in a study called Unskilled and Unaware of It, How Difficulties in Recognizing One's Own Incompetence Led to Inflated Self-Assessment. Without going into too much detail on the specifics of the tests or the methodology they used, they did find in their final analysis that Charles Darwin was right. Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than knowledge. In other words, Kruger and Dunning found out that through their experiments that the more confident someone is, typically the less likely they are that they are correct in their assumptions. Or, according to the Science Show on Radio National Australia, the verdict was in, idiots get confident while the smart get modest. An idea that was around long before Dunning and Kruger's day. Bertrand Russell once said, "In the modern world, the stupid are cocksure, while the intelligent are full of doubt." Well, that's from his essay, The Triumph of Stupidity, published in 1933. Oh wait, Bertrand Russell added something to this. The intelligent are full of doubt? Well, actually, Kruger and Dunning's experiments also showed that people who actually performed well on the tests assumed that they either underperformed or that everybody else performed as well as they did. In other words, the people in the experiments that actually did have higher scores on the tests were less confident rather than more, bringing to light the idea that the more knowledgeable a person is, the less likely that they will be to recognize that, thereby making them less confident. So now that we have a plethora of confident, if not knowledgeable, contributors to blogs and other discussions online, we need to know one other thing. Not only do less knowledgeable people tend to post more often online, but the more people that support them, the more powerful their online persona becomes. This is due to something called the bandwagon effect. The bandwagon effect is a cognitive bias that stipulates that the probability of any individual adopting an idea increases with the proportion who have already done so. Another article in my research stated that PACs don't necessarily believe anything of substance, rather they react to crowds believing they'll miss out on something. Now, bandwagoning in social media is generally considered a good thing, as many people who are responsible for marketing know the phenomenon and take advantage of it in order to increase exposure to their product. However, another article stated that it only takes a small number of determined people to promote ideas which can be harmful in a society. And that might be true. Think about this. One person or group, very enthusiastic but not knowledgeable due to a Dunning-Kruger situation, uses his or her or their charisma and influence through social media to attract an audience about an idea. That idea then gets retransmitted over social media, and because of the bandwagon effect, becomes popular. What you have then is a large number of enthusiastic supporters, none of whom are aware of their incompetence or their cognitive biases, influencing a larger and larger group of people, though no one can seem to logically explain why. I would therefore urge users of social media to be careful. When considering ideas of points of view, look up the sources given in a blog. Take comments, even the most popular ones, on discussion boards with a grain of salt or two, and always make sure, as a contributor to social media, that you are aware of the pitfalls. And if you are knowledgeable on a subject, maybe you should force yourself to speak up. I know it's hard. I know that everyone else is louder than you, but maybe, just maybe, you can attract enough people to let the bandwagon work for good instead of for evil.